Coming to England felt like a good idea at the time. The promises of easy money and status had made this journey seem like the obvious choice as a pathway out of poverty. The debt incurred from being trafficked into the country would be nothing compared to the riches that lay ahead. However, now it seemed the only way to pay back the Albanian gangsters who ran the smuggling rings would be to work in their underground pot farms. Anyone who lives in the UK would admit that the country's pot market is highly active with a variety of different flavors. But one flavor that is particularly common for reasons that we'll get into is Stardawg, a strain that has been linked to the Albanian gangs who have been running the UK pot scene for a number of years now. Anyways, welcome to the Trap Trees series. Please make sure to hit the like button, share this, comment down below. And if you are looking for exclusive content, access to early releases, and a number of other perks, please go to www.highdesign.media. Go support. There's also a free version, so don't worry. Anyways, guys, this is LMC. Let's run it. So, many years back, Albania was the largest outdoor grower of pot in all of Europe. If you would like to learn more about this, you can actually go check out an entire video that I did on the billion-dollar market created by outdoor pot farms in Albania in the small little town of Lazarat. Go check it out. It's really, really interesting. But the video is currently available on our new online platform. Sign up for free today. Link in the description down below, like I said earlier. But recently, police have been making a greater effort to end these illegal Albanian pot businesses. Over the years, the crackdown destroyed the more profitable farms, enough that the Albanian pot market is now really struggling. However, many of these pot growers were businessmen, so instead of just sitting around and watching their businesses be mowed over, they decided to carry their expertise and businesses elsewhere. And as you might have guessed, that elsewhere was Britain. In just a couple of years, they set up a highly productive grows and were in charge of the British pot market in no time. However, they operated outdoor farms back in Albania. In the UK, they were more careful, keeping things indoors, smell-proofing stuff, a bunch of other, tricks, stealing the power, stuff like that. So all over England though, right now, especially in places like Manchester, Gloucester, Peterborough, and Leeds, there are empty houses and industrial buildings that have been dedicated to growing pot. And a good portion of that pot being grown in these abandoned buildings is Stardawg. Before we jump back into the video, I just want to say big thank you to Dr. Smoke for supporting this content. If you guys go over to drsmoke.com and use my discount code LMC, you're going to get 15% off your entire order. Again, that's going to be LMC, 15% off at drsmoke.com. They got all different types of products. Anyways, big thank you to the homies over at Dr. Smoke. Without them, none of this would be possible, so I can't thank them enough. Now, let's jump back into the content. Some say Stardawg got its name from the shining trichomes that cover it, mimicking the brightest star in the night sky, Sirius, also known by some cultures throughout history as the dog star. So Canis Major, the greater dog, has been documented by countless cultures throughout human history. The ancient Egyptians revered Sirius, associating with the goddess Isis and basing their calendar on the stars rising. They called it the Nile Star, or the Star of Isis. To the ancient Greeks, Sirius was a symbol of the hot, humid days at the end of summer, which were called the dog days, because they coincided with the star's appearance before sunrise. Homer, in his epic The Iliad, described it as a sign of the coming heat and associated it with the warrior Achilles. The Polynesians observed the star as it appeared on the horizon and used it to ensure their voyages were on the correct course. The star also holds significance in other cultures, such as the ancient Persians, who saw its rise as a harbinger of good fortune. Dogon people of West Africa, who have a complex cosmology centered around Sirius, which they believe was the home of their ancestral spirits. The astronomical significance of Sirius is just as fascinating. As the brightest star, it has been a key object of study in the development of modern astrophysics. Throughout history, the dog star has been a beacon of wonder, helping guide humanity's understanding of the cosmos, both spiritually and scientifically. Now, while Albanian pot dealers are responsible for a lot of the Stardawg that is making its way around the UK, they did not create the flavor. See, the flavor was created by a man named JJ from Top Dog Seeds in the US. According to JJ, the way to identify Stardawg is by the smell. The smell is strong, gassy, kind of like a diesel and pine, and it hits you immediately when you open it bag. When he made Stardawg, he never intended for it to saturate the pot market in the way that it has, but that's what happens with genetics, right? If the genetic becomes popular, well, organizations are going to utilize that brand or that strain, whether or not they have it even, right? If you would like to learn more about the history of the Stardawg strain, we will be releasing a video on that through our genetics show called Retro Tech. Stay tuned on that. So what was it about Stardawg that shot it into the spotlight? Well, with pot flavors, it's difficult to say exactly what will click with a market, but a major reason Albanian producers decided to start growing pot in their various UK locations is because, in addition to being a good strain, it has a high yield. Now, these two characteristics make Stardawg a financially viable flavor for organized crime groups, so it makes sense that producers would start making a lot of it, especially the black market producers. And as was mentioned earlier, some of these Albanian cultivators are guys who left their country because law enforcement was bulldozing their pot businesses at home. They needed a country that was a bit more conducive to their operation and decided on the UK. They already knew how to run successful pot businesses, including which strains to focus on. Now that said, a significant portion of these producers are just people who escaped their country because of the financial hardships at home. Coming to the UK to run pot grows was their only way out of poverty. Now, in contrast to the people making a bulk of the money at the top of the organization, these people inadvertently find themselves forced to grow pot. They escape Albania in search of greener pastures. However, they do it illegally, paying or owing human traffickers like the Golden Lion, an Albanian gangster who runs the smuggling route from Dunkirk, thousands of pounds to move them into the UK. Now, apparently, they are promised that the UK government would provide them with food, blankets, and everything else that they need, even putting them up in hotels till they are able to get on their feet. However, they soon find out that they have been deceived. Now, unfortunately, because many of these escapees could not afford the thousands of pounds to pay their way through, well, they don't just find themselves shelterless and hungry upon entering the UK. They also find themselves steeped in debt, and this is where the drug lords come in. They recruit these people to work in their indoor pot farms with promises of quick and easy money. And while this might not have been part of their plan with these immigrants that left their home country, they were now in too much debt to resist this kind of offer. So some of the people being smuggled do it voluntarily, but many are there without consent. And this is a common tactic employed by criminal organizations around the world. If you haven't seen the video, by the way, that I did on the Chinese Mafia and the Bubba strains, I highly recommend you go check that out. This is a very, very, very similar video. It's very, very parallel. But human trafficking for the purpose of forced labor in the illegal drug trade is a form of modern-day slavery. It usually goes something like this. Individuals, often vulnerable due to economic hardship, displacement, or coercion, are trafficked and then exploited to cultivate, manufacture, or distribute drugs. Traffickers use violence, threats, and other forms of coercion to control their victims, who are made to work in hazardous conditions without proper protection or fair compensation. Debt bondage is a common method of control in these situations. Victims are told they owe a debt which they must work off, but the terms of the debt are often undefined or structured in a way that makes it impossible to repay, thus perpetuating a cycle of endless servitude. Victims are often kept isolated, and their movements are restricted to prevent them from seeking help or escaping. The psychological and physical impact on those who are trapped in such conditions is profound, leading to long-term trauma and health issues. Sometimes, though, these organizations will uphold their side of the deal too, but kind of too far and few in between. So whether consensual or not, though, human trafficking from Albania and a number of other countries to the UK is a big business, with people like the Golden Lion reportedly making up to $1 million per week. Now, those who have either chosen or had to resort to pot growing after they found themselves increasingly in hot water as the UK authorities have been cracking down on Albanian pot operations in general. But back in 2022, the Ministry of Justice reported that the amount of money spent on hiring Albanian translators to communicate legal proceedings to suspected criminals had more than doubled in just 5 years, which is a pretty indication of how many people flooded in from Albania. Now, the implication here is that the number of Albanian pot growers who have been caught in the UK has increased significantly in the last 5 years, which suggests that there has been a huge spike in the number of Albanians that have been smuggled into the country. According to official reports, more than 32,000 people were illegally smuggled into Britain in small boats via the English Channel in 2021 alone. And of that number, about 60% were Albanians. However, the actual drug lords, most likely the ones that moved their established operations from Albania to the UK, are not the ones who have found themselves in police custody. They try as much as possible to operate a hands-off business. They employ these immigrants who are looking to survive or pay back their debt, and put them in a house that is furnished with a kitchen, toilet, and PlayStation, and only communicate with that employee via calls with SIM cards that are changed regularly. The employees that have to be in the house around the clock for as long as it takes a batch to grow, only leaving to get food or other necessities. And all they have to do is water the plants, adjust the temperature when weather gets too hot or too cold, and wait to receive a call from the boss at about the time that the crop yields. The bosses usually know when to call because plants like Stardawg take between 55 and 60 days to grow. That said, it has to be mentioned that the employees are treated as well as possible and paid well too. But it looks like the only reason for this is to keep the employees loyal in case they get caught. And as a result, while the number of these workers that have been caught increases, the Albanian-operated pot businesses in the UK has continued to expand as well because the bosses themselves have evaded capture. Now, these pot growers are in the business not because they love it, but because they want money and want it quickly. So it makes complete sense that they would latch onto the pot strain, which has that high yielding and potency. However, it's not enough that a strain has a high yield. There also has to be a customer base for that strain to be successful. And luckily for the growers, they didn't need to do much to promote it. The strain already had an exotic reputation in the UK before the Albanian growers started selling it. Now, no one knows exactly who brought Stardawg into the UK or who first smoked it there, but rumors say that someone named Manny did it first, which is why you might have heard Stardawg being referred to as Manny's Cut. So by the time the Albanian growers got into Stardawg, the strain was already quite popular within the smoking communities in England. However, there's no denying that these growers were responsible for making the strain more locally available by significantly increasing the supply. Now, you would expect that this increased supply would result in reduced earnings for the growers, but it actually is not. For one, you'd have to remember that Stardawg has high yield, which means that just a few seeds would produce lots of buds, so production costs are really low, leaving room for huge profits. In addition to that, smokers in England really enjoy Stardawg and have continued to buy it wherever they've seen it. So it looks like as long as the growers continue to grow the strain, they'll continue to have a market unless the authorities step in. There also is a potential for oversaturation to occur, right? And I've talked about this in the video where I talk about the Chinese Mafia and the Bubba strains, right? Whenever you have too much supply, you're going to devalue eventually. The more Stardawg out there, the less exotic it's going to feel and the less likely over time that people are going to want to smoke that. Albanian pot producers are becoming increasingly known not just for their control of the British pot scene, but also for their violent activities, as each gang tries to gain as much influence in the market as they can. So the possibility of being caught and imprisoned by law enforcement is not the only threat that growers face. There's also the possibility of having your product stolen or even being victims of potentially violent attacks. Now, there have been accounts of people getting beaten up to the point of paralysis, some having acid thrown in their faces, even being, axed, right? But people still go into the business because they believe that they don't have any other choice. And as for whether the Stardawg will continue to dominate the market, well, that's difficult to say for sure. Probably won't, just like anything, it's going to be the more volume that comes out and the more saturation there is of the strain, the more it's going to devalue. But the demand in the UK is still somewhat high. But there's no saying whether or not a new, better strain will be introduced into the market soon, rendering Stardawg obsolete. I'm sure there probably is. If you are from the UK, let me know down below in the comments. Are there any new poppin' strains that are really making the same kind of impact potentially, or have the potential to reach that impact? Who knows? Now, another aspect too I want to just highlight is that, the Albanians are also now known for, they dominate the powder game. What I've talked about in other past videos is that while I don't think the consumption of this plant is necessarily a gateway drug, I do think it's potentially a gateway economic portal. And what I mean by that is that it's a gateway for dealers to start to sell harder drugs, right? Because it starts out with weed, and then because they have the smuggling routes set up, because they have, that client base already, they're much easier to just quickly add on new harder drugs to sell to their customers and just make more money, right? Anyway, there's definitely a lot of parallelisms there when it comes to, like I said, the video that I did a year plus ago about me talking about my experience in Seattle with the Platinum Bubba packs, the Asian packs, whatever you want to call it. But really interesting stuff. So in addition though, law enforcement agencies, right, they might be successful enough in their raids to completely wipe out all the mother plants or sources of the Stardawg strain. But for now, those Stardawgs continue to reign supreme among the smokers in Britain. And so do the Albanian pot gangs. So, in conclusion, a combination of potency, novelty, availability, and people involved all play a role in the popularity of strain. Price is also another component as well, at the wholesale level. Now, the Albanians' hold on the UK pot market, combined with the highly sought-after flavor profile and powerful effects of this strain, have cemented Stardawg at the top of the UK pot market. But how long can this last? As we've seen repeated over and over again in other markets, it's only a matter of time before these factors push another strain into the favor of consumers. What strain do you think is up next in the UK? Please, and especially I would love to hear from anybody that's living in the UK from the UK. Let me know. Now, if you're interested in learning more about the history of Stardawg and other iconic strains, check out our show, Retro Tech. We will also be releasing an episode on JJ and the Stardawg soon, so let us know what you think in the comments down below. So yeah, the Albanians have been going off for sure, but the Albanians really aren't just another group in this long succession of, long succession of just different mafia groups pretty much utilizing this plant as a way to make a lot of money. And they leverage, obviously, human trafficking, people trying to get into certain countries, and they blow up the, genetic, right? The one that's popular in that area. They figure that out. They then over mass produce it, and then they just pretty much take over the market. But it's always, so like I said, if you guys haven't seen the video that I did, it's called How the Chinese Mafia Destroyed the Bubba Strains. Go watch it. It's very similar. The parallelisms here are uncanny. It's like literally the exact same thing pretty much. So highly recommend you guys go watch that if you guys can. Also, definitely go check me out on all the other social medias. Make sure you guys go follow me. Thank you guys again for your support. I can't tell you guys how appreciative I am for that. It really means the world to me. And also, if you guys are trying to get exclusive content, you're trying to get early access to content, go to the High Design membership platform. You got to go to www.highdesign.media. If you go there, there's a free version, so there's no real excuse. Free version. There's also paid version. But you're gonna get a bunch of different perks, a bunch of different really dope things, and we're gonna be rolling out constantly new different products out there. So guys, just go subscribe. It's free at the very least. But anyways, guys, I really appreciate y'all. Big shouts out to the UK. Big shouts out to Albania. Yeah, talk real soon. Anyways, guys, this is LMC signing out.